Overview. Aircraft lighting will be covered in the following areas: external lights, flight deck lights, cabin lights and notices, maintenance lights. That completes the overview for lighting. The next topic will cover a general description of the aircraft lighting. External lights. The lower part of the overhead panel controls combined landing and taxi lights, runway exit lights, the lights and notices panel controls dual navigation lights, white anti-collision strobes, red beacons which must be operated whenever the engines are running, wing icing inspection lights, logo lights, You must now select the name of each external light as it illuminates. Flight deck lights. Entry lights to the flight deck are controlled by a switch on the Lights and Notices panel. If required, a second switch is located in the entry area behind the first officer. The lower right side of the overhead panel controls panel instrument lighting, panel lighting, the lower left side of the overhead panel controls standby compass and eye locator lighting, glare shield brightness. The lower part of the overhead panel controls the flight deck emergency lights. If selected to arm, they will automatically illuminate when essential DC power fails. The left side console controls flood and storm lighting, sill lighting, lap lighting, flight kit lighting, instrument lighting, the right side console controls flood and storm lighting, sill lighting, lap lighting, flight kit lighting, instrument lighting, the center console controls console flood lighting, forward and aft console lighting, cabin lights and notices. If external AC power has been connected to the aircraft but not selected internally, dim entry lights will illuminate in the forward vestibule. Selecting ground power on will cause the dim entry lights to extinguish. Full front and rear entry lighting can be selected on as required. The forward cabin attendants panel also controls 4 rows of overhead lighting, passenger reading lights, toilet lights. If normal cabin lighting is lost during aircraft operation, emergency lighting can be selected by a switch located above the forward cabin attendant's seat. Emergency cabin lights can also be selected from the flight deck. In addition, this switch has an arm position which will illuminate the cabin emergency lights if the essential DC bus is lost. If the cabin emergency lights are left at arm when the aircraft is depowered, they cannot then be extinguished simply by selecting the switch to off. In this case, the cabin emergency lights can be extinguished by ensuring that the battery is switched on, selecting Start Master on, and then switching them off. No smoking and return to seat, fasten belts warning signs are also controlled from the cockpit. If no smoking is selected to auto, The warning lights will be illuminated whenever the landing gear is down. Maintenance lights. Internal lighting to all the equipment and landing gear bays illuminates whenever the bay doors are open and the aircraft AC bus bars are powered. If power is not available, a switch can be used to illuminate some of the avionics bay lights directly from the battery. That completes the section on general descriptions for lighting. The next section covers normal operations. Pre-flight. At night, if external power has been connected to the aircraft, there will be some light available on the flight deck from the dim entry lights. AC power can be checked and connected to the aircraft and the flight deck lighting set as required. If external AC power is not available, there will be no lighting until the APU has been started. The navigation lights would now be selected on to indicate that the aircraft is manned. Other external lighting would be set as required and then all external lights checked for condition. The flight deck emergency lights would be checked and armed. Before starting the engines, the lights and notices panel is checked. Fasten belts is selected. Immediately before starting the engines, the beacon is selected on. When the aircraft is ready to taxi, the taxi lights are selected on. When the aircraft enters the runway, the strobe lights are selected on. Landing lights are selected if required. In flight. During the climb, the lights would be switched from landing to taxi. In most parts of the world, taxi lights are left on until passing 10,000 feet. If the aircraft passes through very thick cloud at night, flashing lights can be very disorientating. In this case, the strobes may be switched off until the aircraft comes out of cloud. If icing is encountered, the wing lights can be used to check for icing on the wing. The aircraft should not be flown near storms. However, if lightning is encountered, the effect of the flashes can be reduced by selecting the storm position of panel flood. As the aircraft descends below 10,000 feet, the taxi lights are selected on. These are switched to landing lights when the aircraft is ready to land. Post-flight. Before turning off the runway, taxi lights will be selected. If the turn-off area is not well illuminated, the runway exit lights can also be selected. As the aircraft approaches its parking position, the taxi lights are turned off to avoid dazzling the marshaller. When the engines have been shut down, the beacon is switched off. Before leaving the aircraft, the remaining lights are turned off. If the cabin emergency lights were left armed, and power was removed from the aircraft, the cabin emergency lights would illuminate. How can they be turned off? That completes the description and operation of aircraft lighting. Essential power level. At essential power level, with the standby generator operating, the following lights are available. Anti-collision beacons. Navigation lights. Left landing and taxi lights. Instrument panel floodlights. Console floodlight. Flight deck emergency lighting. Emergency cabin lighting. Some main cabin lighting. When do the flight deck emergency lights operate automatically if selected to arm? Emergency power level. At emergency power level, the following lights will illuminate if previously selected to arm. Flight deck emergency lighting. Cabin emergency lighting. That completes the lesson on aircraft lighting.